Embrace the shadow.
Hey, so what is going on, guys? This is part 2 to last week's video of the zombie storyline. Last week we talked about Victus and Ultimus, who in turn started messing with space and time, and started messing around with all the dimensions of the whole universe, and started messing up the very fabric that held it together. And today we will be going over the Primus Crew's storyline, and how they are trying to fix what their Ultimus versions have done. There will be a lot of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey things in this video. So much as I'm gonna try to make it simple to listen to, you will have trouble understanding it all in one go. So be free to just rewatch it until you get it all in one order. And while we're at it, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Leave a comment if you have any further questions, and I will take those as suggestions for my future video topics. So first thing I want to mention is I did forget something about the Victus storyline on the buried map last week. They do end up siding with Maxis, and I forgot to mention what happens when they side with Maxis. When they give Maxis the power over the ether, he decides to pluck Samantha out of Richtofen's body from the moon, right? And then brings her with him into Argotha. So the two of them are now the only two in Argotha. He also takes Richtofen's consciousness and puts it in the body of a zombie. Richtofen, to this day, still controls the zombie. Now, seeing her father corrupted by the power of the ether, Samantha notices a temporal rift has opened up to Dimension 63, where she reaches out to the Maxis of that universe, in the middle of World War I, where Group 935 is now tasked with coming up new weaponry for the Central Powers. On September in the year of 1917, Dr. Ludwig Maxis and his partner Dr. Edward Richtofen lead an archaeological excavation into the trenches of northern France, after Maxis promises Group 935's leaders that this is the location of an unknown new element. Not only does this discovery lead to the new element, but they also discover an ancient mysterious ruin hidden beneath the battlefield of World War I. Maxis calls this new element Element 115 and plans to use this new element for their weaponry as a power source. The group installs conversion generators at the excavation site using Element 115 to create localized energy fields. To their surprise, though, these energy fields act like portals and suddenly begin to materialize advanced machinery with no explained origin. This leads Maxis to theorizing that the 115 conversion is somehow creating tears in the fabric of space and time. As their excavation continues, they find an ancient box that delivers weapons of various time periods, which just confirms Maxis' theory to be correct. During this time, Richtofen now takes part in some weaponry making for the war, creating 4 giant robots to fight for them, with weaponry hidden inside them, including giant rockets and machine guns. He names these 4 robots Loki, Freya, Thor, and Odin, named after the Norse gods, to symbolize their rule. After the battle finishes, these 4 robots are left to patrol the site of the dig site to keep them safe from the enemy attacking, though unfortunately Loki is lost in the battle before this time. Richtofen now starts to notice Maxis is showing signs of paranoia and mental psychosis. Sorry for my mess up there. The symptoms continue to worsen as Maxis begins to hear voices of Samantha, who claims to be his daughter, which he has never had. Not only that, but she claims to be trapped in this mysterious realm known as Argotha, which he had never heard of before. And so, due to Samantha's constant interference with their work, Richtofen begins to despise her and fears for Maxis' safety. And so, the excavation continues as this drama happens, eventually coming upon a sealed chamber with no way to go in. They give up on getting in and take a small break just to listen to some music while they relax, and suddenly the sealed chamber opens up immediately, thus figuring out that the chambers will open up to certain kinds of music when they hear them. And thus, everyone at the dig site is now fully exposed to direct Element 115, and thus everything turns for the worst from that moment on. Maxis continues to study the ancient writing in the ruins and learns of an ancient race known as the Keepers and their ability to create these powerful devices such as what he calls the amplification rods and elemental stones. According to what it says, the amplification rod is capable of harnessing the energy from the stones. The excavation, however, had found neither the stones nor the rods, so Maxis instructs Richtofen to begin creating the replica rods based on the description, while they search for the originals. Richtofen immediately begins questioning Maxis, believing these rods to simply be a myth. He plans to report to the group's leaders for his partner's insanity, while Samantha continues to reach out to Maxis more and more frequently, attempting to convince him that she is his daughter of the future. But then this is where things get really interesting, as one night a team of soldiers were installing another generator when they noticed strange figures emerging from the excavation site. They then noticed people were suddenly reported missing or dead by the next morning. Over the next few nights, more and more figures would emerge, now revealing to be the ancient knights from the Great War, which we mentioned in the previous video, reanimated by the 115. The test site slowly became infected by these creatures, eventually getting to the point that even Maxis slowly turned into a zombie. Luckily, Richtofen is quick enough to react when he notices Maxis turning. He quickly straps Maxis down to the table, and he immediately starts a surgical removal of the brain before the brain gets infected. As he finishes the surgery, he looks at his hands and the blood covered in them, realizing what he has done and what could have happened to his friend if he didn't. As he comes back to his senses, he realizes he is now in a room alone with Maxis's body, an American soldier, Tank Dempsey, a Japanese warrior, being Takeo, and a Russian soldier, being Nikolai. The four of them realize they have to work together this one time against the onslaught of zombies infected by the 115 released by the sealed catacombs. During this battle, they are constantly being contacted by Samantha to the point of annoyance as she begs them to release her from Argotha. Tank, Nikolai, and Takeo agree to help her, while Richtofen focuses on creating a quadrotor drone using Maxis's brain, allowing him to live temporarily until a human body is provided. The four of them eventually manage to open up a portal to Argotha, where Richtofen releases Maxis into the portal, where he visits his future daughter Samantha, gains control of the ether, and contains the zombie outbreak currently occurring in northern France. Over the next 2 years, Richtofen learns there is a much bigger game being played here. He starts to study these alternate universes and learns about the Apothicons who control the undead and connect all the dimensions together by sending 115 to each one. He then discovers of an ancient book called the Chronorium, residing in another dimension, as well as the summoning key is in another one. He finds the Chronorium to be residing in the Empty Earth. Not much is known about the Empty Earth other than there was an alternate universe's Maxis who had discovered it, and he started using it as essentially a safe place to hide anything of his of value, or any items he thought would be of value later in the future for any universe's Maxis. However, another obstacle that Richtofen found for this Empty Earth is that only a being with a soul can reside there, or the whole place will collapse. He immediately starts going to the dimension of Ultimus and Victus, where he meets his now zombified self from the previous video. If you don't remember that, go back and watch it. And they work up a plan together. Primus Richtofen then goes to the past, meeting the Warden of Alcatraz, talking him into working with the Illuminati to build a lab under the prison for Richtofen to use in the future. The now zombified Richtofen starts talking to Stuhlinger again of the Victus crew, and he controls the zombies to lead Stuhlinger and Victus into the Empty Earth's portal, where he directs Stuhlinger on getting the book, the Chronorium. He then uses the zombies to direct the Victus crew toward Alcatraz, where Primus Richthofen is now waiting for them in the lab with 4 isolation pods just waiting for the Victus crew, having been built by the Illuminati. He says thank you for the book, and he leaves Victus with a choice of going back out in the wild versus the zombies, or hiding there in the 4 isolation pods waiting till it is safer to come back out. He then leaves through a time vortex, letting them think over their answer as he goes to meet his past self, wakes himself from the past up, and he gives himself from the past the 2 blood vials containing blood from 2 members of the Mob of the Dead crew. Personally, I forget which 2 it is, but it doesn't really matter which 2, I don't think, unless maybe it's the Weasel who just escaped at one point. He then tells himself you will need this blood in your future as he leaves back through the time portal back to the Victus crew, where he asks what their choice is, and they choose to stay in the isolation chambers till they are safe to come back out. While they are in the isolation chambers, he takes straws of their blood and gives those to the Primus crew of the future, contained in blood vials that he fills. He says they need 2 for each person. They will need these in their future. This will make more sense to you as we go on with the storyline. As I said, there's a lot of time traveling involved. As the Primus crew make their leave, he makes his own leave, going to Morgue City, leaving behind the Victus crew in isolation. Morgue City, far as we know, is essentially like another Mob of the Dead, where they are in purgatory after committing crime when they were alive. These 4, though, were tricked into committing their crimes by the Shadow Man, who made sure that they didn't get the info they needed, which led to them committing crimes in order to fix the problems that couldn't be fixed without that info. And this led to them going to purgatory, where he controls it. He curses them upon what they have done in real life, and thus only the curse can open up the crate containing the summoning key, so they do so. They then use the summoning key to get back at the people who did not give them the information via email or phone call or something that they missed. But then they realize the Shadow Man was the reason that they didn't get this info, not the ones who actually had sent the emails that he didn't let them obtain before it was too late. They then turn on the Shadow Man and seal him into the summoning key, and they then turn to the Keepers and give the summoning key over. But as they do so, is when Richthofen pops up and steals the summoning key as they're handing it over, and goes back to his universe with the summoning key. And then this is where we come into the events of Black Ops 3, in the events of the Giant. This is where we come in as Nikolai, Dempsey, and Takio are trying to force Ultimus Richthofen to release the test subjects, meaning them, of the Ultimus crew, and release them from their slavery as test subjects. As they do this, Primus Richthofen suddenly appears out of the teleporter that Ultimus Richthofen had just teleported Maxis and Samantha in through, and suddenly Primus Richthofen shoots his Ultimus self. They then leave the Giant on, ironically, one of the giant robots that we see in the Origins map. They pursue a truck carrying the cryostasis chamber of this universe's Tank Dempsey of the Ultimus crew. However, they get shot down by a rocket, having to finish making their way on foot towards Draka. They are too late, however, as the pod is already on a rocket about to make its way towards Griffin Station on the moon. Richthofen poses as himself as he makes contact towards Griffin Station via one of the transmitters on Draka. However, Dr. Groff doubts him and doesn't think he's even the real Richthofen, which he technically isn't, though he is. Groff then activates a failsafe, preventing them from tampering with the pod containing Dempsey. Richthofen then fires rockets at the moon, destroying Griffin Station and all the people on it. They then deactivate the pod after destroying the rocket, thus ending the life of the Ultimus Tank Dempsey. As he dies, Richthofen seals his leaving soul into the summoning key, and then they proceed to their next target, which is the events of Zetsubo Doshima The crew arrive on the island of a Division 9 facility named Zetsubonoshima, which is hugely exposed to element 115 and experiments from it, resulting in a lot of mutated animals and plants. As they dive deeper into the facility, they discover a giant thrasher locked within a cell. After a long ensuing battle with the undead horde, they finally destroy the thrasher, which is then revealed to just simply be a mutated form of the Ultimus Takio. Primus Takio is then shocked to find from his older self that the Emperor he has put his own full life towards in front of his own has ordered him here as a test subject out of fear that he will soon turn on him. Primus Takio then grants Ultimus Takio a chance for redemption, committing seppuku. Having now absorbed his soul into the summoning key, Richtofen then teleports the group into the lab under Alcatraz. This is where they meet the past Primus Richtofen. This is where we were talking about earlier with the wibbly wobbly timey-wimey things. They go to Alcatraz, they grab the 6 blood vials from the past Richtofen, giving it to the Primus Richtofen of the present and his crew. He gives 2 blood vials for each of the other 2, as he already has his own 2 being given to him before the other Richtofen even went on the journey to Morgue City. The crew then leaves, heading for Stalingrad to find the last of the Ultimus crew that they have yet to kill, being Nikolai. The crew are teleported to the Battle of Stalingrad, being fought between several dragons controlled by Group 935 versus Russia's giant robot army. The crew end up having to help Nikolai fight against the giant dragons, but then Nikolai suddenly turns on them, and they end up fighting him in an all-out battle. They finally take him out, shutting down his robot, and then Nikolai opens up to him about how he feels for him deeply, about all the pain he's gone through. He knows the sorrow that he's gone through. Ultimus Nikolai then retaliates by saying some things are forgotten for a reason and attacks Primus Nikolai. Nikolai then, of course, retaliates with his own attack, thus killing Ultimus Nikolai, thus giving the last soul they need for the summoning key. They now have all 4 of the Ultimus crew killed. Richtofen sends the souls to Dr. Monty, who places the souls into 3 bodies that he made just for them, kind of like a vessel for the souls. Monty then transports them from Stalingrad to this new perfect world which he created. This realm is a place he created just to be separated off and be safe from the doings of the rest of the universe, with every universe affecting every other one with the 115 infestation from the apothecons. Unfortunately, the word safe doesn't last long. Maxis, unfortunately, doesn't have his soul. All he has is a brain. The Shadow Man from within the summoning key is able to take control of Maxis. He tells Maxis to free him, and he does, but then it traps Maxis inside of the summoning key as well. The Shadow Man then brings along all of the apothecons under his rule into this new universe to attack it. Then it becomes an all-out war between him, the apothecons, versus Dr. Monty and Primus. The Primus crew, of course, wins, but the results destroy all the universes which are not this one, and thus they shouldn't be there, should they? But during the battle, they drink blood vials. The blood vials containing the Victus crew. The Victus crew, who no longer existed before this wipeout that they just did during the battle. Thus, they don't get wiped because they're the Victus crew now, if that makes sense. Their blood is of another universe which doesn't exist, so they don't get deleted in a way. Kind of like a computer, if you think about it. And then Monty realizes they're still there because they drank those blood vials of a universe closed off from this universe. And he realizes that it is a paradox, putting his whole new world in danger of the paradox. Then he realizes it works out, and he sends them to the past as the premise of the past, right after the Great War that had fought in the war, the original war of the Keepers versus the Apothicons that started with all of the universe. This is when they then instructed the Wolf King to build Dryzendraka. However, after they told this to the Wolf King, they were never seen or heard from again. Thus we are left with this cycle of them going to the past and the stuff they start while in the past. The Wolf King, the fight and everything, sets the stones for the premise of the future, who then go to the past again and so on. They, far as we know, are trying to break this cycle. They are doing something to get out of this cycle, to get their future / past selves to not be transported to the past and to actually live in this perfect world. This is what Black Ops 4 will be about. This is also my theory of Black Ops 4's Blood of the Dead. What I think is going on is that the premise Richtofen that we see hiding there already, saying the other one is late while he's reading the Chronorium, he is telling the past Richtofen to read the Chronorium because he is premise Richtofen after Dr. Monty sends him to the past. Because remember, they disappeared after telling the Wolf King to build Dryzendraka. Where did they go? They must have time traveled again, right? So this is where premise Richtofen clearly went to. He went to this Mob of the Dead, where his past self met with his other past self. He clearly messed around with something so his farther past self didn't show. And now he's telling his other past self to read the Chronorium, read the changes I have made in history and the universe after being sent back in the cycle. And now we're left just blind. We don't know what's going to happen at this point. But comment below what your ideas are, or if you have another idea that maybe some other YouTuber came up with. Please share this around, see what other ideas people can come up with. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for future theory videos. And until then, enjoy.
As the gates to Agartha opened, the 4 heroes were rewarded with riches beyond imagination. From that day forward, they knew that Samantha would keep them safe. Forever.
Getting everything wrong. I told you before their eyes should be blue.
It's my turn, Eddie. I can do whatever I want.
But you don't even know how to play properly. Girls don't know enough about zombies.
What's the choice of it, children? Make sure the windows are locked before you come down to the basement.
We'd better do what your dad says. I didn't even get my turn.
Tomorrow, Eddie. You get to make the rules. I promise. Come on, Fluffy.
I wish the heroes in our stories were real, Sam.
I know what you mean. But we will make everything okay. My dad says he has a plan.
Okay, another thing I want to talk about, I just thought of this from watching a video from Talum, if you follow him on YouTube. I never thought of it this way, but he just realized something, and holy crap, it is spot on. So, you guys know how Jason Blundell's been talking all about Takeo this, Takeo that, right? Well, remember, he got 4 blood vials from Mob of the Dead, not just the 2, like I said earlier. He got 4 blood vials from Mob of the Dead. Then he got 4 from the transit crew. He gave 2 to his previous self before Origins takes place, and then gives 6 to the other 3 of the premise crew, which means 2 of those blood vials is Mob of the Dead crew. So, premise Richtofen is not the only one with the blood vials of Mob of the Dead. So if the cycle ends in Mob of the Dead, the cycle will end for someone else too, of the premise crew. Someone else with Richtofen of the premise crew would be in trouble when the Revelations takes place, if the cycle ends in Mob of the Dead, because they won't be protected by the Mob of the Dead crew either. So It's gotta be Takio. Or, not Takio. It's, honestly, I think it's gotta be, Nikolai. I have to agree with Talum on this, because Jason Blundell has been saying Nikolai is so big a character and so big a role and different from the other characters. This has gotta be what's different about him. He's the other one with the Mob of the Dead Blood Vials who is going to have an effect on the storyline because of this. Comment below what you guys think about this theory. I want a lot of input on this. This is big news if it takes place this way.